Searching for newspapers can be a little like herding cats. And that's the challenge for researchers and genealogists. Newspapers were produced by countless different companies and institutions over the years, covering a very wide range of time. And of course, today they're held online and in library basements and everywhere in between. Old newspapers are really worth the hunt because they are such a rich resource that sometimes have information that just no other record's going to have. So it's really exciting when a new newspaper resource comes online, or in this case, returns to the internet, because Elephind.com was a huge favorite amongst genealogists for many years. And sadly, a couple of years ago, it closed its doors. But saddle up, my friends, because it is back. And here to tell us about it is Stefan Boddie. He is the managing director at Veridian and creator of Elephind. And we also have with us Damian Bennett. He is the marketing manager at Veridian, and that's the company behind Elephind. So welcome to the podcast, gentlemen.
Hi, Lisa. Great to be here, and thanks so much for having us.
Thank you, Damian. And you're with Veridian Software, and that's kind of the engine behind Elephind. And I know, Stefan, you are the creator, the mastermind behind Elephind. So I'm really excited to be talking to you guys about this new relaunch, because I know people have really been hoping that something like that would happen, and here it's here. So for the benefit of somebody who's watching and listening who isn't familiar with Elephind, Damon, can you tell us just first of all, what is Elephind.com and what was it before, and when did it close? And then is it the same thing today, or is it something new?
So just a little bit of an intro in terms of Veridian. So essentially we work with libraries, historical societies, cultural heritage organizations around the world in terms of helping them digitize their historic newspapers. And then our software, which is called Veridian, helps make that accessible and then discoverable online. So collectively, the projects that we've worked on now hold probably about over 200 million newspaper pages. And most of those collections are actually freely accessible, meaning anyone can explore them. So with Elephind.com, it's essentially a specialized search engine that we built that allows someone to search all those newspaper pages all in one place. Otherwise, I guess without a tool like Elephind, you'd be going from one library collection to the next, doing your search, and it could take probably a lot of time and a lot of resources and visits to essentially find everything that you're looking for. And I think probably also just one thing that we're really conscious about with Elephind, and obviously with a lot of AI search engines like ChatGPT, the key thing with Elephind is that those search results will always take users back to the original source, to the source material, so they can actually go directly to those collections. We're not about taking traffic away from those collections. It's all about supporting them. In terms of how did Elephind actually come about, it was actually a bit of an experiment, really, just to see how far we could actually push the Veridian platform. We wanted to test out new features. So it was essentially started as an R&D kind of project. But then as people started using it, they kind of really started falling in love with it. We didn't really realize how quickly it was going to be embraced by genealogists, historians, researchers, and just really family history enthusiasts. So people just really loved that they could search newspaper collections all in one place without having to kind of spend a lot of time going here, there, and everywhere. Unfortunately, what happened with Elephind, we had to take it offline. There were a lot of costs in terms of keeping Elephind running. So hosting, maintenance, security updates. And I guess over time, it was running for 12 years. Those costs kind of kept growing. And the older technology that we were using, it actually started posing a bit of security risks. So we decided just to do the responsible thing. And we made the decision to take Elephind offline while we tried to kind of figure out how the best way to kind of rebuild it for the future. And yes, we relaunched it 3 weeks ago, completely rebuilt from the ground up. People that have previously used Elephind will hopefully see that it's a lot faster. It's definitely more secure now with updated technology. And there's some really cool new features, particularly the smart search, because previously it was all kind of based just on kind of the keywords that you put on. But we've also included a bit of an AI summary assistant. So with the results that show, you can use the assistants to kind of summarize those for you to help make sense of kind of all those search results. It's still a work in progress, but within that AI summary, again, it's about including the source as well. So it's all about driving essentially people to those specific collections so they can see the newspaper articles and pages.
It sounds like really it's that user interface. It's the functionality of the website that's what's priority. You guys aren't digitizing papers yourselves and putting them on Elephind. You've really designed a technology tool. And so was that kind of your goal originally? And how was it bringing AI into all of this?
Yeah, I mean, we're technology people primarily, right? But my whole career has been working in this industry, right, which is about helping libraries and archives and institutions digitize their collections. So that's what we do, and they want to put them online. They want them to be searchable and accessible online and all of that stuff. So we're really the tech people that help them to do that. And so we were kind of thinking, how can we test this technology that we're using to make sure it works at 5 million and 10 million and, maybe 50 million? And the idea back then was, well, why don't we kind of try and combine all of these projects that we've got and search across all of them? And that's a great way to stress test the technology. So that was a starting point. And as Damian said, we kind of launched that and liked the idea of it. One of the problems, obviously, with all of these projects is they become little silos, right, all over the internet. Mm-hmm. So as well as, the big commercial newspaper projects that everybody's familiar with, I'm sure lots of your listeners will use, newspapers.com and the British Newspaper Archive and all of that stuff. They bring together these huge archives and then you pay your subscription and you can access them. But as well as those, there's all the kind of projects who we work with who are, they're digitizing the typically state libraries and national libraries and university libraries and even high school libraries in some cases we work with, who are digitizing their collections and putting them online. And typically they're freely available, and if you know where they are, you can go and find them and you can search them. But they do end up being silos, so you have to kind of seek out all of these. There are hundreds of them on the internet, probably thousands. You have to find all of these little collections, and it's a lot of work to find them all and see if there's anything in those collections that is of interest for your particular research. So the whole idea, we do think it has genuine value for people to be able to search across all those freely available resources in one place. And obviously it has value for the projects who we work with because they, to a certain degree, are about traffic, right? They want to be able to measure how many people use our collections. And if lots of people use our collections, then they can more easily raise funding to do more digitization and all of that kind of stuff. So driving traffic to these collections is important as well. And we think we can kind of help with that with Elephind.
Absolutely. Damian, I remember when you guys closed it, I started hunting around Veridian's website, and then I found the newspapers projects section. And then we were back to, like you said, these individual groups that you could do one by one. But, it was nice to know at least you could still gain access from one page. When we look at the projects page on Veridian, are those all included in Elephind Search? And does Elephind Search include others that we don't normally see on the Veridian website?
We launched 3 weeks ago. Obviously it takes time to kind of get them indexed. We had just over 13 million. 3 weeks later, we're just teetering on 26 million. The Veridian site's kind of more commercially based, so It's all about kind of showcasing some of the projects. So by all means, most of those will definitely be searchable through Elephind. The only other thing is that we obviously do have some projects where they are closed off and there is a subscription model. Obviously, we can't make that available, but our intention is to essentially try and drive traffic to all those projects that we work with.
So when we search Elephind, we're not going to be running up against a link when you click it and it says, oh, sorry, you have to have a subscription to this site. You're giving kind of a portal to a lot of different places that all make their collections available publicly. It's just the ease of being able to find them through Elephind.
Yeah, so when you click on a link, so for example, if it's a newspaper hosted by Colorado newspapers, then essentially you'll be taken directly to that particular platform, directly to that page. And in terms of whatever you've searched will automatically be highlighted within their collection. So you can easily find exactly what you're looking for. You're taken right there.
From the sound of your accents, you're not here in the U.S., are you? Tell folks where you're coming to us from.
So it is just after 10 a.m. in New Zealand on Friday.
Fantastic. So this is a truly international enterprise that you have going on. So give our viewers a sense of the scope of the project in terms of what kinds of collections are you pulling from and maybe a sense of even the time frames, how far back some of these newspapers go.
probably kind of a key thing, which is worth noting, is that sometimes a lot smaller, lesser known collections that you would potentially maybe find on some of the bigger sites like newspapers.com. There could be regional, student, kind of community newspapers as well. And I think these are actually quite important because these types of publications, they're a little bit rarer, and they offer valuable perspectives in terms of historical events that might be otherwise missed on maybe some of the mainstream sites. The other component that we are working on is we also have a lot of multilingual collections and collections also based outside of the US. So as part of the Elephind project and where we'd like to take it is also getting those projects included within Elephind as well. Probably one thing to note about that is with those multilingual collections, obviously they're not in English. So one key thing also about the new semantic search is that if you searched for, say, World War I warships, if it was, say, in Spanish or something like that, or in another language, the semantic search would be able to match that too, even though it was written in English. So that's quite interesting too.
Absolutely. And you're so right that we all know where to find some of the big commercial newspaper websites, but sometimes you're looking for something really unique and specific. And in just a few moments, you can run by elephind.com and check and see if they have something. And I've seen some really unusual and unique newspapers over there. So let's jump into the searching part. You kind of alluded to it. And I was even going to start off by asking you, is it worth translating my search and going ahead and putting in there in the language that I'm looking for? But maybe not. Tell us, what are some of your best tips for searching the site?
As we've all got kind of, suppose, more comfortable with searching, say, on Google, etc., we now kind of have this behavioral component where we search a little bit more in terms of, what we call a smart or semantic search. So we kind of use a little bit more words, we kind of phrase it into potentially questions, whereby traditionally Elephind in the original version primarily relied on keywords and would essentially just look for those words as they appeared in the article. But with a smart semantic search, it's taking into things like context, it's looking at synonyms, and then it's also looking at kind of related ideas as well. So, for example, one of the examples that you'll see on the search tips page is if somebody searched, what is a smith? Traditional keyword search is probably going to return you thousands and thousands of examples of people with the name Smith. But with the smart search, it has the ability to kind of interpret that, well, potentially you're actually looking at an occupation. So smithing, for example. So, I mean, that's just one example. Another one is, I'll use the World War I warships, for example. So obviously at the time, WW1 was not really a term that was actually used. Essentially, with the semantic and smart search, the search is able to kind of understand that World War I is that, what WW1 means and actually returns the relevant articles, even though that term wasn't specifically used back then. And the other thing, just as I mentioned, like in terms of questions, if you typed in a question, for example, say when was rugby invented, it would have the ability to kind of understand that particular question and return more relevant results as well. But that's not to say that, the keyword search is not important, particularly from a genealogy perspective, where you're potentially looking at specific dates, names. So it still has very much an important place, and it's still very much a core feature of Elephind as well.
Fantastic. Stefan, I used to teach people on my podcast and on my videos how to use some search operators with Elephind to try to get exact phrases or to eliminate a word. Can we still do that? And do you have some recommendations?
Yep, you can still do that. So hopefully in an obvious spot on Elephind, there's a little toggle switch where you can switch between the smart search and the keyword search. And the keyword search is very much the same as it was prior to the relaunch recently. So you can still do that. You can still use Boolean operators, do all of that stuff. It's a mental shift. We're finding good examples of the smart search, you kind of have to change the way that you think about searching because it's become so familiar with the kind of stuff you're talking about. Your brain's processing what words do I want to search for, what words would have been used during the time of the newspapers that I'm interested in, all of that kind of stuff. Whereas a smart search can kind of once you get your head around it, can actually make that a little easier, and you just start kind of asking things in more natural language, more like you would with a ChatGPT kind of thing, or with Google, I guess we've become pretty familiar with. more of a natural language kind of search terms and letting the search engine figure out what you mean and return the most relevant stuff. But you can definitely still do the Boolean operators and all of that good stuff.
Wonderful. I'm excited. Gosh, you're giving us both options to be able to really drill down, but also talk to it and interact with it, much like we would with any other AI chatbot, and dig into all of these terrific sites. Damian, I just got another email saying you had put on a couple of million more pages you've indexed. So you're busy indexing your clients' collections. What is coming down the pipeline in the future for Elephind?
Yeah, so when we launched 3 weeks ago, we were sitting at just over 13 million. So by the end of the year, we're hoping to have at least hitting about the 50 million mark. And then we've still probably got about another 150 million pages to go in terms from an indexing point of view. So in terms of how we're trying to prioritize, a lot of the historical newspapers are kind of US centric. So we're trying to, I guess, in terms of the way we're uploading, is not just trying to get everything from one particular, say, state, for example. So we're trying to kind of even that up as we go. And we also are looking at gradually kind of getting our collections from other areas around the world there as well. Just trying to get as much of a balance as that we can in terms of giving users what they want. I guess the key takeaway there is that after every new batch that we've updated, we will send just a notification out to those that are subscribed to Elephind, just to let them know what new titles and collections have been added. So if you can't find what you're looking for, I guess the key message is please check back. The other thing is that if you kind of want those regular alerts, you can sign up for a free account on Elephind, and essentially you'll get those notifications as those new collections, titles, publications become available.
Oh, that's a great tip. So as a company, I assume you still reach out and try to get new customers. Is there potential down the road that you will be acquiring new customers, building out their collection and their websites for them, and then adding those into Elephind?
Absolutely. Yeah, we're looking to support and help different library, historical society, cultural heritage, university communities in terms of making those resources available. And it's not just in the US. We actually have collections from around the world as well. We hope that driving that traffic will be able to kind of support kind of future development of making additional content available to their communities as well.
We so appreciate how you're making it so much easier to be able to dig into all those wonderful sites that you have. It's wonderful to see archives and libraries and institutions making their collections available like they are. And we just wish you great success. Damian, Stefan, thank you so much for stopping by Genealogy Gems. We appreciate it.
No, thanks so much for having us. As I said, this was my first podcast. So, it's been a great experience. Thank you.